Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we're going to try to discuss a little bit about Malcolm X and understand his lifestyle and what we can gain from it. So my first question, inshallah, for today is what inspired Malcolm X to come towards Islam and become a Muslim?
Well, there are two Islamic phases to Malcolm X's life.
Okay.
Malcolm X was introduced to Islam while he was incarcerated. Malcolm X had grown up a very brilliant child, a magnificent child, a very articulate child, a gifted child. Mm-hmm. But what happened is, as happens with many youth, that a lot of pressure is placed upon. He found himself in a lot of trouble, and it's a very long story concerning how that happened and what happened to his, in his pre-incarcerated life. He was introduced to the teachings of a man by the name of Elijah Muhammad, who was representing an organization called the Nation of Islam. And Malcolm X, through the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, actually came into what he understood was Islam. Mm-hmm. And much of what we understand about Malcolm X, or what brought Malcolm X to the world's attention, was through his work as a minister in the Nation of Islam. Now, the Nation of Islam is not seen as a quote-unquote orthodox Islamic organization, but the symbols of Islam, the language of Islam, the culture of Islam was introduced to Malcolm X through the Nation of Islam under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. However, after that time, Malcolm X learned about what is commonly called Orthodox Islam through his interaction with Muslims from Muslim majority countries and his travels and his difficulty reconciling some actions within the Nation of Islam with his own conscience. So he actually was able to learn a bit more about traditional Islam. He was able to visit the city of Mecca and perform the Hajj, or the pilgrimage that is required of all Muslims if they are able. And during his pilgrimage to Mecca, he was given a taste of traditional Islam. And the last year of his life, he spent as a Muslim, practicing the 5 pillars of Islam, and practicing those common features of Islam that we identify with the Muslim world. Malcolm X, his life and his sojourn and his journey just represents that, that activist spirit that all marginalized communities want to tap into. Yep. Malcolm X, he provides this kind of activist electricity that everyone who wants to fight injustice wants to plug into. Yep. So Malcolm, we have to be careful not to collapse Malcolm into one particular saying or one particular phrase. I always hear everyone say, by any means necessary. Well, no, Malcolm X was much more than that.
Like you mentioned justice, like you mentioned consciousness of yourself and fighting for the truth. So do you think that partly had his own personality from birth to his experiences could have led him to Islam eventually?
Well, yes, ultimately guidance belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty. But we can see that if we read the autobiography of Malcolm X, you can see that he came from a family that was very virtuous, that was very education and oriented, uplift oriented. Okay. His father was actually a member of the UNIA, which is the Universal Negro Improvement Association, an organization that was founded by Marcus Garvey. Mm-hmm. And this organization was very interested in the upliftment of black people worldwide.
All right.
And his father was an active member in this group. Also, his mother was an active member, and they actually taught Malcolm from young the virtues of pride, of hard work, of racial consciousness, that Malcolm actually, never really forgot. Those values were instilled upon him as a young child. However, because of the pressures that Malcolm's family found themselves in a racist America, the family was broken apart. In fact, his father was actually murdered by members of the Ku Klux Klan. And because of the pressure of that, because of the trauma of that, his mother actually was not able to take care of the family. And the family was broken apart.
Wow.
And from that time, Malcolm X actually found himself in trouble, found himself getting on the wrong side of the law, and which eventually led to his incarceration. So Malcolm, from the beginning, actually showed traits of brilliance as a result of the rearing from his family. So what happened is, when Malcolm was in prison and he was exposed to the teachings of the Nation of Islam through Elijah Muhammad, it kind of just relit that spark that was in him.
All right.
Okay. So Malcolm, we have a concept in Islam called fitrah. That every child is born upon Islam, meaning they're born with the natural inclination to believe in the one God.
Yep.
However, it's the society that may gear them towards something else.
All right.
So you could say that Malcolm perhaps had that fitrah, that electricity within him to know his Creator and to seek his Creator. And when he heard, that, life-affirming message of Islam, both in prison and later on when he went to Mecca, it just basically relit that spark that perhaps was in him from the beginning. He provides an example that, look, we do have our traditional texts of Islam, the text, but we also have the context, right?
Yeah.
And the context here in the West, in Canada, in America, is unique.
Yep.
It is authentic, but it's unique. And Malcolm X provides the template to how we can understand Islam in this part of the world in a social context. I think that's where Malcolm X's importance lies, especially for Muslims. Absolutely.
All right. So, alhamdulillah for the amazing things that we learned from Malcolm X today. And we obviously, this is just Malcolm X is one figure, and there's so many other scholars and people of knowledge that we need to learn from and really study our religion and understand that we have a lot to contribute towards the society. Like we had mentioned in previous shows, how much Islam and Muslims have actually contributed towards humanity. Inshallah, we want to be known as Muslims that, if we were to leave Canada, that people would remember that, they would miss the Muslims. They would say that, we wish the Muslims were back and contribute the way they contributed and how they were spiritual human beings and they provided good for the community. So inshallah, we hope to take those steps and be in that zone, inshallah. Once again, Imam Yassin, Jazakallah khair for being with us. It's always an honor to have you, and we'll see you next time at the Islam Dunk Show. For further information, please visit us on islamdunktv.com. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.